The others naman develop Scrum, so si Schwimmer, Schwab, saka si Sutherland. And they later actually also split paths. So may mga kanya-kanya sila ginagawa. Yan. Okay. We'll continue. I'm going to give you the principles ulit of Scrum. And then we will proceed with discussing the Scrum parang methodology itself. At saka ano yung roles, at saka yung artifacts. And I explain those very, very quickly. So, the 3 Scrum principles are inspect, adapt, and then transparency. Okay? Si Bas Boda, yung isa sa mga pioneers ng Scrum, he explains it this way. Of course, you know, there are some places in the Philippines that are actually sanctuaries to migratory birds. Diba? Yung birds that are coming from China will fly to Australia pag winter time in China. Kasi mas mainit sa Australia pag winter time. And then they will fly back to China. So they're now wondering, the scientists were wondering, how can birds do that, that long flight, and still find their destination each and every year, each and every season? Scientists have discovered that they actually perform three basic habits. Okay, so when they're flying, after some period of time, they stop, and then they inspect where they are, okay? And then they adapt, they adjust, or do course correction. Okay? They do course correction. And then they fly again at a certain distance, so they can say, where is Australia coming from China? They say, okay, general direction, let's fly south. And they will fly south, then they'll stop, and then they will inspect again. And then they will say, okay, let's course correct a bit here, 5 degrees here. Of course, the birds are not talking that way, but that's what they're doing. They're just inspecting and adapting after each trial until they reach their destination, which is kind of what you guys did here. No? One trial, one sprint. You made a basic plan. Some things worked, some things didn't. We improved those in the next iteration. And then we prove them again, and we prove them again. So inspect, adapt, and the third one is transparency. This one is important when it comes to communication. No? Make things visible. So Scrum is very big on making things more explicit. Like what we're doing there, we're writing them down and posting them on the walls. We call them information radiators because they will radiate information to the whole team. I'm sure you guys have experienced this. You talk to your client and he says, I want this form with these fields, etc., with a couple of buttons, etc., etc. And you think you understood what the client wanted. And when you finally deliver the form, the client says, what is this? I didn't ask for this. But you said, so you keep on. It's about what that person says versus what you thought he said or she said. How would you have improved that situation? Do a quick paper prototype actually. While the client is speaking, try to draw. Is this what you're after? Callen actually, wala na siya. They're also into rapid prototyping. So, like if you're using Ruby on Rails, while you're talking to the client, you're doing your basic setup, and then you show the client, is this what you're thinking of? Or I've worked with teams who will surf the internet while the client is talking, so that they can show a sample working application. This is the functionality that we know. Is this what you're looking for? And then the client will say something like that, but put this. That's transparency, making things more visible. Of course, we don't want, for example, agile practitioners discourage using Visio and or PowerPoint. Why do you think is that? Even Photoshop, not to make your photographs. Yes. So first, you need someone who knows how to do Photoshop. And then to revise, you have to go to that, you have to open your laptop. So it's actually better to do it paper-based. And just draw, pen and pencil. In fact, the authors of the Agile Manifesto encourage, instead of using Visio or flowchart, just draw boxes and arrows. It's not even very formal. You have to use yung disk to represent a database, tapos yung ganon to represent a printout. Just boxes and arrows. And the client will understand that better. Diba? Kasi for many years, software development was engineer-centric, was programmer-centric. Agile and Scrum are actually customer-centric. We are exerting effort so that the customer understands us, and we also understand the customer. So inspect, adapt, transparency. Here's an example of making things transparent. This is an information radiator, or it's just a fancy way of saying it's a wall with post-its on it. So these are the tasks. And there's a daily ritual in Scrum where at the start of the day you gather and you look at it and you ask 3 questions. I'll explain those to you shortly. So what is Scrum? So it's an agile method. It capitalizes on self-organizing teams, and that was the point of our game. And it's based on lean principles, which also demonstrated the game, so small batch sizes, etc. Now I'm going to discuss the rituals and practices and artifacts of Scrum. Rituals are things that we do. They're the habits that we need to perform at the minimum so that the Scrum will work. So those are rituals and practices. And then the artifacts are the basic documents that we need. They're very, very lean. We don't make 500-page documents. One client that I have had a 200-page project charter. 200-page project charter. And reading that is already an effort by itself. And that effort could have been spent working on that software, etc. Ritual practices and artifacts. Have you seen this diagram before? It's the Scrum diagram from Scrum Alliance. We start by getting input from the users, customers, and stakeholders. Everything passes to what we call the product owner. So this is one of the important roles. So the roles in Scrum are the product owner. There's a ghost in the machine. Okay. The product owner, the development team, and the Scrum Master. Those are the roles. So all of the requirements, they pass through the product owner. And the product owner creates a list of features, aka user stories, and that is called the product backlog. It's a backlog because it's a thing that we need to clear constantly. Yeah. It's a reminder that we have to act on it constantly. From there, the product owner meets the development team, facilitated by the Scrum Master. And then the product owner explains to the team what he needs for one sprint, for this coming sprint. So a sprint is like this. The team will actually estimate, will give a size estimate to each of the user stories or features here. And then they will select which user stories they can fit into one sprint, and they break it down into tasks, producing the sprint backlog. Okay? And once that is set, once they agree which features, so here naka-indent 1 to 7, this means that the product owner and the team agree that the features to deliver for the first sprint are features 1 to 7. The team breaks that down into tasks and produces the sprint backlog. And then the sprint begins. During the sprint, no changes should happen in the features or the code. Okay? The product owner is not allowed to interfere with this list. Okay? There are exceptions. For example, one programmer is developing the login screen, and login screen is very easy to produce in half a day, couple of hours, and it's ready, and then the product owner happens to walk past, and he sees the programmer. What's that? Sir, it's the login screen. Can you check it? And then he says, okay, but I need it in blue. Very minimal change, right? So you could actually code quickly and then make that change. It's not a change in feature, right? You just want a refinement of an existing feature that you committed in a sprint. Okay. What's important here is that the team commits to deliver these features during this sprint. Okay, when we say commit, it's like this. We commit to delivering 5 points, but we didn't deliver it in the first sprint. And that's okay. Agile is very big on a tolerance for failure. In fact, the practice is that the first 3 sprints, you are not yet very familiar with each other, with the client and with the Scrum Master. You need to develop the way you are estimating. You get better and better at estimating. And by the time you reach 3rd or 4th sprint, you pretty much know your rhythm, and your estimates become actually more accurate, such that you know you have a general idea of what your velocity will be throughout the rest of the sprints. Okay? Is it making sense? Okay, just raise your hand if you have a question. Don't be afraid to interrupt. Here it also says that a sprint will take from 1 to 4 weeks or a month. So let's say for simplicity we do a 1 week sprint. Okay? And so on Monday we do the sprint planning, which is this. Choosing what tasks to do. And then when we have the tasks and the user stories to develop, we go through that sprint. And during the sprint, we hold our daily scrum. The daily scrum, we stand up for 5 to 15 minutes only, and each person will answer 3 questions. Who's doing scrum here? Okay, what are the 3 questions?
What I've done,
Okay.
challenges, and what I'm going to do.
Baliktad. Anyway, so what have I done so far, or since yesterday? Right? What will I do today, or what am I doing now or next? And then what are the challenges I'm encountering that are hindering me or blocking me from proceeding? Okay, and what's the purpose of the daily stand-up? Practitioners, what's the purpose? It's synchronization. It's not an update session. You are not updating your boss or your teammates. You are just, the first one is you are trying to synchronize your activities. And the second one is you are self-organizing yourself. Meaning, this is my agenda for today. Ideally, you are doing the daily stand-up in front of the tasks. So it's like this. You stand up and then say, okay, I've done this, I'm not doing this. I've finished doing this. You put it from doing to done. And for yourself, you realize, wait, this task, I have 5 tasks, I've only finished 1 task, and it's Wednesday. So it's a way for you, it's a way for you actually to manage yourself rather than updating everyone else. That's the purpose. That's why it only needs to last up to 15 minutes. It shouldn't be very, very long. It's not a problem-solving session. Okay? The problem-solving session will happen after that scrum. After you break up, okay, I will say, for example, Owen, I noticed your obstacle for today is you cannot log into single sign-on, or you have no idea how the single sign-on is working. I have knowledge of that. Let's work together. That's the problem-solving time. But it happens after your scrum session. Okay? Why do we do that? What's the reason behind that? Raise your hand if you attended a meeting. Raise your hand if you attended a meeting. Okay. Raise your hand if you attended a meeting and you think that you shouldn't have attended, but you were invited anyway. Okay? Raise your hand if you think that was a waste of time. Okay. Me, it wasn't a waste of time because I bring a laptop and then I play Plants vs. Zombies. No, just kidding. Okay. So, diba, meetings are very inefficient. Like this, if we met right now, and these are the IT guys, those are the marketing guys, and then there's a problem at marketing, we start discussing for 1 hour, IT guys are just looking around, tapos they're fighting pa, it's very uncomfortable, your time is wasted. You're not relevant to the meeting. In the daily scrum or the daily stand-up, you just update you just answer those questions and it's done. You self-organize. The meetings, the self-organizing meetings should happen after that. And it only involves the relevant people who need to be there. The rest, go away. You can go back to your work. Those who need to talk to each other, you can talk to each other. That's what happens. That's why the daily stand-up is important. Okay, let's jump. So that's our basic pattern. So daily Scrum meeting and artifacts update. Everything is facilitated by the Scrum Master. Tapos, sometime in the middle of the week, kasi as you are meeting, the product owner realizes that maybe I need to refine my product backlog, which is this. So he conducts product backlog refinement, or they call it grooming. They go back and revisit the list of features and say, okay, feature 7 actually needs an additional feature. I will push down feature number 8 and insert this new feature. Such that, pagdating ng Friday, which is the end of the sprint, diba? We review again what happened. So, here is the review. We invite the product owner who will attend the review, and also some stakeholders who might want to know how the software is turning up. So, and then the team actually conducts that demo with the product owner presiding. And then what happens next? So, the product owner will actually give comments, or if he's happy or she is happy, then that user feature is marked as done. Okay, so feature number 1, login screen. Okay, no more changes, done. Feature number 2, a user must be able to check out items into a Shopify. Diba? Okay, I've seen it, it's happening, done. So one by one it gets done. And those corresponding points now get credited into the actual. I'll show you mamaya an example. At the end of that, sprint review, diba, we total them, the number of points that we delivered, and that is our velocity for that sprint. Right? So it goes back to this. It's similar to this. So the first estimate is guaranteed na it's not going to be very accurate. Because like here, remember I asked you and you had different answers, no? Ranging from 0 to 50. Diba? So it's arbitrary, we don't know yet. But here now we're establishing a pattern. And then, like you mentioned earlier, we would rather be consistent with our estimates and our velocity. Okay. So these are the roles, and these are the artifacts. So, these are the rituals and practices. So, sprint planning meeting, there's part 1 and part 2. I'll explain to you the details mamaya. Getting input from end users, customers, the team, and other stakeholders. This one is a discipline, no changes in the duration or the goal. Somebody asked kanina, what happens to the deadline? You don't move the deadline. The principle of time boxing works this way. If you say your deadline is end of August for the software, and you're not delivering it, you think you will not make it kasi ang dami masyadong features, diba? And the deadline falls, what do you usually do in traditional project management? You extend, okay? The principle of time boxing, you don't extend. Okay? That's why in sprints, a sprint should be regular in duration. So if it's a 1-week sprint, you don't extend the sprint if you're not able to deliver what you committed to deliver. What happens if you cannot deliver within the 1 week is you revisit what happened and say, okay, next time we know that this feature is happening. It cannot be delivered in one sprint. Then why don't we split that task? Split the task so that half of it can be delivered. So I might make it up. So split the task into 2 independent tasks so that I can deliver the first task, and then in the next sprint I deliver the next task. And they have to be independent, right? Because as usual, at the end of the sprint, it has to be a potentially shippable product, meaning it has to be a working software. Okay? So you don't deliver a login screen, but it doesn't have a submit button because submit doesn't work yet. Diba? Diba? So it has to be finished. It has to be complete by itself, that task. Questions so far? So that's time boxing. You don't change the deadline. What happens is we change the scope. So based on our experience in working, we have 1 or 2 weeks, what activities could be fit in a week? And that's actually the whole idea behind estimating, why they're important. In traditional project management, and I've had this problem before, who makes the estimates in traditional project management? It's the project manager, it's the PM, right? And how does the project manager estimate? For example, login screen, that will take a day. Pero, just to be sure, maybe something else will, to make up for any eventualities, I will put a buffer of 1 day. So now the login screen is 2 days. And then what happens in real life, when the programmer looks at the Gantt chart and sees 2 days, he watches a movie in the day 1, and then day 2, he starts coding. And that's called Parkinson's Law. You know Parkinson's Law? Diba? Parkinson's Law. Work will expand to fill up the original estimate. Some of you are smiling because you've done this. Diba? By the way, who's project managers here? Okay, diba? You put a buffer time, usually traditionally, what do they teach in traditional project management? Buffer time is how many percent?
Usually, at least 50%.
50? 50? Wow. They only taught me 10 to 20%. So if it's, let's say, if it's 1 week, so let's say 1 week is 5 working days, diba? 20% of that is a day. So 6 days. So the Monday, deliver it sa next Monday, instead of delivering it Friday. And what actually happens is, you end up delivering it and using up the buffer time. Diba? So, in traditional project management, you are no longer honest to each other, and you're no longer honest to yourself too. In fact, I've had many clients na when I was looking at, I asked them, who are the PMs here? And they said, okay, we have a PMO, a PM project management office. And I was looking into how many projects can a team deliver given us a particular time, like in a year, how many projects can they deliver? And they couldn't give me the statistics. Because the way they were managing a project isn't team-based. So let's assume these guys are the architects, these guys are the developers, these guys are the testers. When there's a project, they pass the user requirements from the designers. When the designers will design it, they pass that document to the developers, and the developers pass on to the testers. So it's a baton race. In baton race, a relay race. You pass the baton from one to the other to the other. It's not true, it's not real teamwork. You are not capitalizing on a high-performance team. Why is that? So, it's very convenient for them because once the architects have passed on the project to the next, to the developers, they can now attend to another project. Okay? But the developers have a question, so they will ask a question to the designers, but the designers say, no, don't bother me, I'm already doing something else for the other project. So, ganun din. When the testers have a question, they try to approach the programmers, but the programmers say, we're now busy handling 2 other projects. So there's never any integrity within the project. What they do is they say, okay, 50% of your time you're in project A, 50% of your time you're in project B. It's worse sa iba, no? 60% and then 20-20. Or 30-30, 40. I'm sorry. 40-30-30. In reality, it doesn't really happen. And it's more difficult. Diba? Have you encountered that, yung juggling several projects? And why is it difficult, juggling different projects at one time? You are?
Losing track of the other project.
You're losing track of the other project. Or let's say, I'm focused. I'm doing one project today, but because I am 40-30-30, I will devote 40% of my day, so I'm 40% not 8 hours. That's about 3 hours or 4 hours. Diba? I will devote 4 hours, tapos sa hapon after lunch, I will now sit down and devote 2 hours in project B, and then another 2 hours in project C. Pero in between, there is a switching cost. Tama? No? Kasi when I switch from project A to project B, I say, ano nga ba ito project B na to? Then I have to read the documentation all over again, and that is already your switching cost. You don't have switching cost when you're dedicated to one project. That's why actually Scrum teams can achieve more, can deliver in a faster, with less resources, with less people. I've seen this happen. It's also well documented in a lot of books. There was one case, there was a 90-member project team delivering a very complex software, and they've been doing it for 6 years. The original timeline was 2 years. And they couldn't deliver anything. So they switched to Scrum. They were reduced to a 15-member team. And they started delivering during the first sprint. Because your commitment in Scrum is to deliver shippable products, right? So first sprint, I think it was a four-week sprint, so 1 month. First sprint, they were delivering that. Second sprint, they delivered more. Compare that to a project, traditional project management project that says, okay, let's see the client again after 6 months and present what we have. And then another 6 months, so 1 year. And by that time, it's very expensive to correct any changes or any errors or make any changes. Make sense? Okay, sorry. These are the artifacts, so the important documents. So what we're saying here is they are the things that we need to fulfill for the Scrum to be effective. So first is the product backlog, which is owned by the product owner. He writes down the features and they are prioritized from most important to least. Okay? And the prioritization, very important, take note of this, is from most important at the top and least important at the bottom. Tapos, the ones on top, let's say features 1 to 10 or 1 to 15, they are more granular, they are more detailed than the ones below. Okay, so here it could be something like login screen, a shopping cart, and then way down in the bottom it could be something like a feature that allows user groups or bulletin boards. So you're no longer detailing the Why do we do that? Because we only concentrate on refining the features that we need to slot into the next sprint. And then as we move along during the product grooming or backlog refinement, we detail the features at the bottom. Okay, so it's like a moving window, no? Na parang, ano, FIFO, first in, first out. So the first one here should be slotted into the next thing. And when it's done, we move to the next list. So, and then each time we hit this, we start refining the next on the list. That's the product owners per role. So sprint backlog is owned by the development team, the developers. When they look at the stories, they say, okay, I can break down the login screen into, first I have to put my table in the database. And then I have to go through encryption and check sa single sign-on, etc., sa LDAP or whatever. Yeah. Who are programmers here? Sysads. So it's really mostly PMs and programmers. Okay, so yeah. And that's it actually. No? So product backlog, sprint backlog, and then there's a burn down chart. I will leave to you guys to research one burn down chart. I'll show you an example mamaya and what its importance is. But we might not have enough time to do details. Okay. So, okay, sorry. So when the sprint finishes, we do a review, okay, and we'll discuss this. During the review, the PO and other stakeholders look at the product and then they make suggestions for improvement. Let's say this is a common question. Let's say we are gathered now in a sprint review and we are doing a demo. We've invited also the boss of the PO and other users, and they have comments. How would you handle that? They have comments about the product. You document them. Actually, in our way, what worked for us is we invite them, but in the invitation, we tell them they are not allowed to speak. But they're called chickens kasi there's a story about that later na yan. So all of the guests who are not member of the Scrum team, the Scrum team kasi is composed of the PO, the Scrum Master, and the development team. If they're not a member of the Scrum team, but they're in the demo, they're not allowed to speak. But we will distribute pieces of paper and ball pen, and you can write down your comments. Tapos after the demo, the PO, the product owner, collects those comments and then reads them out loud with their time. And then he asks a question, what did you mean by this comment, etc.? What did you mean by this suggestion? And then he says to them, thank you very much for your suggestions. I will take them into consideration. I will look at my product backlog and see whether they've already been programmed. And probably we will insert them if they are indeed valuable. Okay? That's what the product owner says. And then they dismiss the sprint review. We complete the sprint review. Why do you think we do that? Why do we encourage that practice? Yes, feedback. We are getting feedback. Also, why don't we allow them to speak? To avoid arguments. And what happens if there's an argument? It takes up time. It takes up time and it wastes na naman yung time ng iba. Diba? The sprint review is not the time to plan. Remember that. The sprint review is not the time to plan the product. So what you do is you tell them, and that's part of what we call stakeholder management. Right? We are getting their comments. They know that we've noted it. And we do not argue with them. So we are diffusing a potentially explosive situation so that we can make our time more efficient. That's a short answer to you. Same? Sinabi lang.
I have a question.
Go.
Regarding product backlog refinement, how long does it usually take, and is it only done by the product owner, or does he or she consult with the
Good question. Who owns the product backlog? It's the product owner. So ideally, it's only the product owner who has the task of refining the backlog. But it's the Scrum Master who facilitates the whole process. I'll give you the roles mamaya, no? More detailed roles. Scrum Master makes sure that they are performing their roles properly. So, in fact, and it also falls within the Scrum Master's responsibility to evangelize about Scrum. So much is expected of a Scrum Master to manage the transition towards Scrum. So there's this thing called a Scrum Master's checklist. And in the checklist, it actually says, are you managing your product owner so that the product owner is actually managing the backlog and doing refinement? So what happens is the Scrum Master reminds the product owner and sometimes may even be sitting down with the product owner to refine the backlog. Plus, you may bring in the development team. Here when it says team, is the development team. Bring in your development team so that the product owner can have a dialogue with the development team and they can make suggestions. They can say, this user story is too big. We can split it into 3 other user stories, etc. Okay, does that not answer? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So, very important to note, and again, what are the 3 principles of Scrum? The 3 principles in the tatlong balls. Inspect, adapt, be transparent, or transparency. Okay. So, look at this. We have a sprint review and a sprint retrospective. This one. In the sprint retrospective, in the sprint review, we inspect and improve or adapt the product. Okay? After the sprint review, we dismiss everyone else except the development team. And then the development team sits down and inspects naman and improves the team's processes. Okay? To do this, we ask 3 questions. Again, the guys who are doing Scrum. Do you remember the 3 questions?
What worked, what didn't work?
What worked? What didn't work? What do we improve? Or what do we improve for the next sprint? Or a shortcut, another way to think about it is, what do we stop doing? What do we start doing? And what do we continue doing? Stop, start, continue. Okay? So the one way to look at it is what worked well, what needs to be improved, okay? And then what didn't work. Or the alternative is what to stop, what to start, and what to continue. This one is for the team to learn from its mistake. And you mentioned that kanina, diba? Learning from mistakes. So Scrum is big on that. Let's say, for example, in one sprint, you inserted, let's look at an example. Let's say, you are connecting to a web service. Let's connect to the authentication web service of such and such government agency. This is based on an actual example that we had to deal with. So there's a development team that's creating an application that needs to find out whether this person is a member of this government agency or not. And the government agency actually has a web service that accepts a request containing the name of the person and a member ID. And then it sends a response saying yes or no. And then these are the authority, the level of authority that is the access rights of this user. Okay? The team said, okay, we can do this in one sprint. And then they tried doing it, and then they realized that the government agency was difficult to work with. Okay, so you couldn't actually achieve it in one sprint. So in the sprint review, they weren't able to demonstrate it. What they did was, they talked to the PO and told him the problem. It should come out, the issue should come out agad, right? In the daily Scrum, when you ask your obstacles, that issue should come out. Now, we cannot connect to the government agency's web service because they're difficult to collaborate with. They're not always available, etc., etc. So the Scrum Master and the PO work together to try to resolve that problem, but still, they weren't able to resolve it also. So by the time the sprint ended, during the sprint review, that task wasn't done. But the programmers did a workaround. And again, this was in consultation with the product owner and the Scrum Master. The workaround was, let's pretend it's authenticated. Let's create our own parang internal authentication method muna to demonstrate that. Diba? So, para a mock web service where you send a mock request and get a mock response so you can come in and demonstrate the other features that are related to an authenticated user. Okay. So they were able to deliver that. So what they did was they split the task and said, okay, make a mock. So they revised the task and said, make a mock authentication. And then they separated another task that said, connect to the government agency's authentication service. Okay? So now, their done became that first task, and then the second task was programmed into the second sprint. Okay. The sprint review was over, and now it was time for the sprint retrospective. And they all sat down and discussed what went well and what didn't work. Okay? So if you were part of that team, what would you put in what went well and what didn't work? What worked and what didn't work? What would your suggestion be? What worked during the last sprint and what didn't work? Any guesses?
What worked was to build a workaround, and what didn't work was maybe you were approaching the client or the government agency the wrong way, so they corrected it.
Okay, yeah. Or another lesson here could be, in the next sprint, let us look at the tasks that depend on stakeholders we are not controlling, on people we don't control. And then let's estimate, put a bigger estimate on that. Or split it into a task such that the dependency on the other people can become its own task. Okay? So you get the point behind the questions. When you're asking those questions, you learn valuable lessons, and then the team commits to resolve those lessons to implement those solutions in the next sprint. There's a caveat here though. Okay? Let's say you come up with 10 lessons from the past sprint. Right? It's not humanly possible to commit to all of those 10 to improve in the next sprint. You choose only one. Okay, here for example, the one that I gave is, that one lesson is, next time let's look for user stories that depend on others that we cannot control. And then split those tasks. In a team that's doing perhaps a 2-week or a 4-week sprint, you can also choose up to 3 to improve in the next sprint. Okay, so do you see the importance now of the sprint retrospective and the sprint review and how they fall into the Scrum principles? You guys are okay with it? Okay. So questions. Okay. So let's look at as an example of a product backlog and do some size estimations. Okay, I covered the initial estimate of effort. This is an example. You can make your own backlog. It shouldn't have to be this way. But in this particular backlog, these are the number of sprints. So here there are 6 sprints. This particular capture. And then can you read off masyado malayo, no? So I'll read them, and then we will be estimating their size mamaya. I'll give you a technique. So the column here is a product backlog item, also known as a user story. Tapos, wala na tong details, it's just giving more detail about this. And then the priority, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a forced ranking prioritization, meaning there can only be number 1, there can only be one number 1, one number 2, etc. Okay? So this forces the product owner to really prioritize the features. There's an estimate of how valuable this feature, and I think the the rating scale is 1 to 10, 10 being the most valuable. So here he's saying this has a value of 7, and then the rest is 6, etc. Okay. So I'm going to read off the list, but I need a couple of volunteers who will write them down into the index card. So who'd like to volunteer? Sino may hawak na pwede? I'm going to assign na lang. Si Brian, take 1. Please use your pen and pen. Who has the pen and pens? Could you Jeffrey, Jason. Ilan ba to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to read them now. Tapos, you guys, if you want, you can approach and then write them down. Just pen and pen para kita. Kasi they're going to be used in an exercise, in a game, another game. Okay. So, the first one is, and you know that user stories have a certain pattern. It goes like this. As a buyer, so the buyer is a role, a type of user. As a buyer, I want to place a book in a shopping cart. As a buyer, I want to place a book in a shopping cart. So, obviously, this is actually an online store being developed. And the most important feature is the shopping cart. And the user for the shopping cart is a buyer. Okay. Second, as a buyer, I want to remove a book in a shopping cart. So, if you've done Amazon, you could place a book, but if you decide I don't want this book, you can remove it. Okay, that's the second feature. The third one, it says improve transaction processing performance. It's more like an optimization goal. And then the fourth one, investigate solutions for speeding up credit card validation. Again, it's a performance task. Tapos, the fifth one, upgrade all servers to Apache. Lumang version pa, 2.2.3. Diagnose and fix the order processing script errors. So this becomes more of optimization task. And then as a shopper, I want to create and save a wish list. Parang Amazon talaga. Then as a shopper, I want to add or delete items on my wish list. So could you write down the ones assigned to you? So from 1 to 8. Can approach if you want. So these are the features of the online shopping site that we want to create. Our next goal is to do size estimations for them. Who has petal pens? Yes. This will be our last exercise, and then we will wrap up. Ay, mamaya na. So what we are playing now is called a size estimation game, and it's going to demonstrate to you why we do size estimation rather than effort or hours or duration. Okay? If you're done, Brian, please start post the on that empty space in the wall. So if you're done, please post your index cards. Now I need 2 volunteers. 2 volunteers. Dali ba naman? Preferably yung hindi pa nag-scrum. 2 volunteers please. Owen, sige. Okay? Start reading the items. 1 more volunteer. Hindi pa nakaka-scrum. Come on now. Ayaw tumingin pa sa akin. Come on! Okay, Francis, ikaw na. Kasi PM ka, okay? You have 2 more ata. Start reading them. Tapos ikaw na. You can also read them. So observe niyo yung papagawa ko kay Owen at kay Francis. You can also do this as your way of estimating initially yung mga user stories during your first sprint planning. Okay? So, una muna si Owen, since siya yung unang volunteer. Looking at the user stories, find what you think is the most simple, the fastest, the easiest na ma-deliver. And then, reorder mo sila. So, kunin mo yon and then place it. So, from left to right, place it here. Siya yung pinaka-least na size. Yung pinaka-mababang size. In terms of, ano yun? Which one? Asa na yung isa pa? Ba't ko lang isa? Using this muna, kasi habang nag-visit. Oh yeah, looking at them over, which do you think is the simplest? The smallest size. You guys might want to stand up also and observe. So don't coach. Just observe and then form your own opinions. You will have a chance to speak up mamaya. So from left to right, from lowest size to biggest size. Note also, parang commentator on, note that I haven't asked Owen to discuss this with anyone else. Dapat siya muna, mag-isa. Okay? Kasi pag nag-discuss ko sa iba, mas magtatagal. So ito, personal muna niya, what he thinks should be the order. I have a question? Sorry, kaya nga sabi ko, the smallest size. Okay. Size matters. Size kasi is an estimation of simplicity or complexity, time, duration, effort. It's a mix of everything. Yeah. And medyo parang sobrang counterintuitive na sa start kasi na-train tayo na per hour or effort or complexity. what we want to emphasize dito is that even if we use those kasi, they're not really accurate. So, better pa na sizes. Okay, Mr. Owen, are you happy with the way you organize them? Okay, is that your final answer? Okay, now we will dial a friend. So, you may sit down. Si Francis naman ngayon will take a look at them and impose his own order. Okay, now, if may papalitan ka dyan, you have to speak out kung bakit tingin mo, bakit siya kailangan dilipat. Okay? Okay lang, dito na lang. Wala yung Apache. So, siguro yung inassign kong magsulat na IIS fan. Okay pa ba yung IIS? IIS fan siguro sa hindi yan. Gusto niya upgrade sa IIS sa Apache. So, kung may move ka, say why.
Alright. Yung wish list doesn't involve somebody who, it's just list. You don't, doesn't have to be transactional.
So, you're thinking, kasing simple siya nito, or kasing size siya nito, or it's actually smaller siya?
It's actually smaller
than
those things in wish list. Right? And then add wish list. And then
so you don't need to that? Kasi magkakawain ko sila. So, the purpose here is actually to surface your assumptions. Okay, so Owen, bakit mo rin nanon, and ikaw bakit mo?
Siguro ako, I'm thinking more on the programmer side sa So as a programmer, yun yung sabihin ko pinakamadaling gawin kasi hindi ba kailangan ng database interaction yan kahit nasa session ako.
Tama yan. Yan nga pala siya yung included sa session application. Should be tech, sorry. Pero sige, assume mo ng programmer. Sige, ganun lang. So, agree ka.
But the with regards to parang nagiging birds of a
Face-to-face.
feather.
Nasa face-to-face tayo ngayon.
Parang nagiging birds of a feather. Anyway, the wish list actually doesn't involve computation.
So, mas simple siyang gawin.
Yeah, it's just the list. Well, putting something on a card will involve real-time computation as the user will be able to see the current value inside this card. So, wish list may somehow doesn't require somebody to get into the system or log in. Buyer, on the other hand, needs to log into the system. So, or you can have select, and then log in later on and then check out. So that could be the process. Well,
siguro since it's a wish list, personalized siya. So para sa akin dapat nakalagin ka, so yun. As a parang sa akin, since it's a wish list, may database interaction ka, login ka doon, nakasave yung wish list mo mismo sa database, tapos request mo pa rin. So, mas marami kang kailangan, kasi may database interaction na eh. Yung sa unang mga sinabi ko, wala pa. So, yun.
So more effort and complexity ang pinapakot mo.
Yes. Actually, depends pa kung yung nag-handle ng database is ikaw mismo o iba pang tao. Oo, availability pa.
I would like to ask, sino mga programmers? Jan, can you see, will you tend to agree more with Owen or with Francis? With Owen? With Owen? Si Owen. Okay. So, ganito na lang, since I forgot, that was my mistake actually. The PO and the Scrum Master aren't included sa size estimation. It should be the programmers because para at least pare-parehong assumptions. So, since Jan agrees, we put them back sa order na yun. Tama ba? Is there anything else here that you disagree with?
Well, I'm disagreeing with the diagnose and fix the or use from script errors.
Saan siya dapat?
I guess that's the easiest one.
Alright, what do you say?
Because those are script errors. Script errors are just from web pages. Script errors.
Siguro yung sa script error, syempre may mga browser compatibility issues tayo. So may mga ganun pa, may mga developers na hindi pa nag-tackle yung bagong lumabas sa browser. Yun, yan.
So, what will you agree on? What can you do? What can you do? Okay na sa'yo na perception mo?
Move a little bit.
Siguro pwede.
Saan?
Kasi yung last part na yan, more on going through yung mga nagawa na eh. So, much more time consuming sa akin yung tatlo. So, pwede nyo ipagpalit-palit pa rin. Pero yung the first four, siguro is more simpler na dito sa tatlo. So,
Can you suggest where you should go? Stand. Tapos, you have to agree. Sorry.
yung ano kasi na complexity.
So, ano tingin size? The sequence. Pero good po. So, si Francis actually raised an important point. Sabi niya, bakit daw yung diagnose and fix dapat sa last na siya kasi it's optimizing everything. My reminder here is, it's not about sequence, it's about size. Size matters. Yeah. So we are trying to estimate the sizes regardless of the sequence. It's mixed up.
Actually, a lot of things that if you build up, if you decide about the architecture and building blocks, it really influence very much on the process. For example, the wish list and what's called the wish list and the card, they did like to and the database, because it actually is in one database and on the cloud, which is the wish list.
Sure. Yeah. That's why you need to surface those assumptions. And then we need to revise the user stories later. But assuming now that these are the stories that we agree with, how will you just estimate the size given those assumptions also? It's a bit difficult to break them further.
The blocks to consider, and then to talk about these blocks inside the system. Because building blocks is already highly related to the implementation.
Okay.
This is
not noted actually. But the important thing here now is even if we don't break them apart, which ones are the bigger sizes and which ones are the smaller sizes? It's a bit difficult. So have you agreed on the so it's not a part of it because it's not a very clear breakdown of user stories. But still, the point actually is just estimating the size for now. And then later on, maybe we realize these are bigger stories. We can split them further. Okay, so please be seated now. Okay, and then I would like you to ask now to assign size estimates. Okay, and the size estimates are. Sorry, I'm just rushing a bit because we're near 5 o'clock. the size estimates are Fibonacci. So 1, 2, 3, it's just the sum of the previous, and I'm not sure if my math is correct. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 24, 55, and then just big. Big meaning this is too big. And we will tackle it later on. We will split it later on. Okay. Looking at this, we saw, and both of them agree that as a buyer, I want to place a book is the smallest size. We will assign it a size of 1. Okay? So the size of this is now 1. This is 1 starting point. Next, as a buyer, I want to remove a book in a shopping cart. Is this the same size as the first one? Or is it a step bigger or 3 steps bigger? Or more? Is it the same size? Is everybody? Oh, it's just adding and then removing. So it's probably the same effort. So we also put it as a size of 1. Sorry. Okay? Next. As a shopper, I want to create a wish list. Okay? Is that a size 2 or a 3 or a 5 or an 8? It's a bit hard because this is the first time we're doing it and we don't know each other. But once you start doing it at the second sprint and then at the third sprint, you get better and better. So, what do you think? For argument's sake, is it a size 2? Kasi as a shopper, I want to create a wish list versus as a buyer, I want to remove a book in the shopping cart or I want to place a book or add a book in a shopping cart. Is that a 2? Is it bigger or is it the same? Is it also a 1?
Bigger.
It's bigger? So if it's bigger, that gives us 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. Which one do we pick? 2? 2? Size 2, no? Sige, let's put it as a size 2. Next, this one. As a shopper, I want to add or delete items from my wish list. Is that a size 3? Or is it also a size 2? Is it also 2? Okay, sige. Remember, there's no right or wrong answer here. So, it's our initial planning, it's our initial estimation exercise. So, you could be very, very fluid and then we just learn from our mistakes. What we're saying, is it 3 or 2? 2. 2, okay, sorry. I'm not listening. What I'm doing now, by the way, is what the Scrum Master does. He or she facilitates this process. Diagnose and fix the order processing script errors. Is that also a 2, a 3, or a 5? Or even an 8?
5.
What do you think?
5.
Okay, there's another game called the planning poker. I haven't heard about this. We distribute cards. It could be, playing cards. And each of you has one set from 1, 2, 3, 5. So we have these Scrum cards that have Fibonacci numbers in it. And then I will ask you, what should be your estimate? So you go to your card, and then I'll count 1, 2, 3, and then you show your card. Okay? And then everyone will now see that there's a difference. Tapos I will ask as Scrum Master. I will ask the lowest and the highest bid. Why they're estimating that way. And then everyone will keep voting until we achieve the same number. That's the planning poker game. There's a lot of resources about this on the web, so read how it's done and then try it with your team. So okay, let's set it at 5, just for expediency, okay? So this means we don't have a 3 right now. 1, 2, and then we jump to 5. Improve transaction processing performance. What's that? Is that also a 5? Or is that bigger? Big? Joe, what do you think? How many? Is it an 8? Is it a 13? Yeah? Where you gonna? Let's answer.
8.
8? Let's say 8. So we can move on. And then last, investigate solutions for speeding up credit card validation. 13? Big? Big. Okay. Big, agree? Okay, agree. So what have we just done here? First, we listed the user stories. Next, we estimated them. Ideally, the estimation game, you get all of the members of the development team to join. So we start with one, like what we did earlier. So Owen started it, and then another programmer stands in, Francis, and then he arranges it, and then they start discussing why they're rearranging it, and then they settle on one thing. And then the next programmer comes in, and then rearranges further, and then everyone has a consensus on how the sizes should be estimated. That's first. First is there has to be consensus. Second, size is a bit difficult to estimate. It's very relative. What you think is a small size might be big to another. The more important thing here is that the planning itself, the size estimation game itself, will surface the assumptions. So you get, as a Scrum Master, you need to get the developers to talk about their assumptions and then to agree on what their assumptions are so that they can agree on a size estimate. Okay? Next, since it's subjective, we can only build the sizes, the estimates, based on the simplest that we think, or the one with the smallest. First, we find the smallest user story, and then we designate that as 1. And then the next ones are bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, so this is one sprint, for example. And then come next sprint, we have a new set of user stories. We now try to find out, okay, this user story, is it more like this, a number 1, or is it more like a number 2, etc. It becomes easier as we move along towards the sprints. And we get better and better at size estimation. Okay? So, if we total the so this is 1 point, this is another point, so we have 2 points so far. And then we have 2 here that are 2 each, so that's 4 plus 2, that's 6 points. And then plus 5, that's 11, plus 8, 19. And then we have a big, we can estimate that. So 19, let's say we committed up to this, that's 19 points. That's our velocity for, well, if we deliver everything, that's our velocity for the sprint. Okay? So, do you have any questions on size estimation? Yeah.
Sinabi mo kayo, if ever you're going to be adding an item, and they're going to be comparing that to the an item that's already existing the table. After our sprint, we found out that that item is already easier.
Good point. So I'll show you now a sample of filled up na. So you're saying, what if in the course of the sprint we find out it's bigger? Diba? Here are their own estimates. Let's say initial estimate of effort is 5, and then in the first sprint you found out it's actually 10. You just write down 10. Diba? Because the new item will come in the next sprint, diba? Then we'll adjust it. Okay? That's it. That's the importance of parang there's every day when we're discussing it, we are looking at the items in the sprint backlog, and then we are realizing, okay, we have underestimated this. Let's adjust it. You don't erase this. You record it here. In sprint 1, this was actually 10 points rather than 5. Okay? So, and note also that this column is about the remaining effort or the remaining size. Sorry, this one is using effort. It's actually, we will encourage more of size. Any other questions on size estimation? Yep. Sorry, good question also. We want to show the complexity of size estimates. It's not necessarily a linear progression. No? So the next user story that's bigger than that is not necessarily just 2 and then a 3 and then a 4 and a 5. We want to show kasi na the size estimates are just estimates actually. We want to emphasize the subjectiveness of size estimates. Does that make sense?
Another reason to be that if some of the tasks are actually dependent on manual tasks, which should be before that, then actually it's accumulated
Yes.
time.
So it's more like you're trying to account for the other vagueness of it. Sometimes they might have dependencies. Or sometimes a dependency will, like my example before, it depends on a person who is not within your control. So you expand the estimate further. So parang we want to veer away from that old linear progression of estimates. Just to emphasize that these are estimates and they're not really accurate. In the traditional project management perspective kasi, you put number of hours and then you try to occupy all of those hours. Right? So we want to veer away from that kind of perspective. From my personal perspective, I think it's just a way of parang really just being different from the traditional project management. Just to remind us that these are estimates, they are not hard and fast calculations.
So sir, are 2 stories which are estimated to be 2 and 3 equal to a story that is 5?
Not necessarily also. Not necessarily. Because then, it depends on are those two stories dependent on each other or not? Depends. So we don't know. So you will only deal with that once you know. So if you combine them, you say, okay, let's see. What's the new estimate? Okay, yes. Important question. I can only answer it a bit, from my personal experience also, and from what the practitioners recommend. Michael, if you want to chime in also, give me a if you want, they're asking where does the contract negotiation come in. Pero were you asking, for example, how will the contract negotiation now look like because the features are fluid? Tama ba yun? Okay, yeah. I will give an answer, but the Scrum practitioners can also give an answer. Our practice is we convince first the customer na you are now hiring us on a time basis. So think of it as you are leasing us for like 6 months because the contract will always specify a fixed rate. You are hiring us for 6 months. The 6 months will no longer be extended. And then we say, the customer will always say, but don't that put me in at risk because then I will always spend money with that. Then we tell them, we guarantee to you because our method now is more attuned to what you need, we will be more flexible. But we assure you about, just to give you a peace of mind, let us first agree on what the general features are, which is actually our product, backlog, and product vision. So during the contractual stage, what we do with the client is we draft some semblance of a product vision and a product backlog. But we use we use traditional terms. We say what are the user requirements, what are the product objectives. But those get fed into the product vision. Right? And then we actually build into the contract a clause saying subject to negotiation with the customer and the development team, we can change the items in the feature list. We are building into it the change readiness. Okay? Does that make sense to you guys? So the most difficult thing here is convincing the client that they're paying us for a certain amount of time because their fear is if it's a certain amount of time and they keep on asking for changes, they might pay more. So we reassure them and say, no, we will build into the system more flexibility so that we can incorporate the changes. Right? So Michael, how would you answer it?
Usually, what I do is, as Ben said, fixed in time, so 12 6 months. But you agree on a high-level overview of the product. For example, e-commerce. then the specifics is to follow. Then subject the change readiness within the contract. But fix in time. Yun yung important.
So the important thing is fixed time. These are the features in general, and then build into it a clause that says we're okay to change.
Ganun.
Anyone else wants to contribute? The Scrum practitioners. Ganun daw ba sa OMB? I don't know to you guys.
Sa amin kasi, same with Michael na yung sales team na we consult with the PAs and with them. Tapos we come up with a high level like requirements based dun sa mga meetings for them, and then we provide them with an estimate. Na ito kaya namin gawin within this time frame. Pero yun nga, Sir Ben is right. Merong clause na we will accommodate yung mga changes. Kasi nga, yung agile attack rate.
Nakausap ko si Karen dati, pinasagot ko muna kayo. Si Karen said that one of the most difficult transitions was convincing the client na this is going to be time billing. Diba? Kasi iisipin ng client, time billing to diba? So, one way to convince them is, look at it this way, you're hiring us for 6 months or 1 year, and you can ask us to do anything that you want.
Mas hindi lang sumayaw, pwede rin sumayaw. Mas within the 6 months, okay lang.
Now, this is why the estimates are important, because the estimates build trust between the development team and the product owner. Now, how does it build trust? Hey guys, why do you think it builds trust, the estimates? It's transparency plus consistency. Now, let's say our velocity is 35, and then we rated our user stories, we put our sizes, and then this sprint, the product owner says, okay, I want feature number 1 to 7, and then we total them, and they total 50. What does the development team do? Okay, so our velocity is 35, but the product owner is asking us to deliver 50 in the sprint. What do we do? Break down, or do we try to fit all of the 50 into a sprint? No. See, Claire is shaking her head vigorously. Why? Why don't we do that?
Because it's a known thing that we can only do.
We can only do so much. Agile is big on work-life balance. Okay? This is what we usually tell a client. Okay, client. Of course, we don't call them, okay, client. We just say, okay, let's say, and this is common, and I'm sure you've gone through this. The client will make pakiusap, di ba? Sige na, 50 for this sprint. What you can tell the client is, okay, we will deliver to you 50, we will spend overnight, overtime, etc. But what do you think will happen in the next sprint? Diba? Because people will be puyat. People will be overworked. They will burn out. And we will say, next sprint we will ask for only 20 points because we need to rest. That's why I asked to you earlier, what would you rather have? A consistent performance every sprint, or declining and then ascending and then declining? And it makes sense. It has to be consistent. Why? Because it also assures the client that you guys don't fall out and die during the course of development. We want, if we have 10 sprints, we want you guys performing the same way from 1 to 10. We don't want you performing high at 5 and then dying slowly as you reach 10. It's 1. So you can see now why it's important also for you guys to make the estimates as accurate as possible, as honest as possible. I've seen actually, this is sad actually, I've seen some Scrum teams doing the old project management style. They add so that they could charge more. Diba? So please don't do that. Just raise your rates. Diba? Because what does that do to you? You are also deceiving yourself.
What if the other way something opposite happens. Like, example, if you finish, let's say you promised 50, and then you finish the 50, let's say you did. So what do you do?
That's a good question also. What if you overestimated your stories? Let's say we committed 35 and we delivered 35 middle of the sprint. Then what do we do? Okay? Let me ask you guys, what do you think should be done? Party! That's one way. You can watch Pacific Rim now. Okay, there are several answers to this. Like I said, we are very tolerant on failure because this is more of experimentation. The principle behind it is consistency. Okay? So possibly what happened was because possibly we were underestimating. We overestimated because probably we got better. We were probably here on the third sprint. We thought we could only deliver 4, but we actually delivered more. Right? We were actually delivering 4 on day 2 of the sprint. So what we could do, if that is the context, no? If that is the reason, parang biglang nagkaroon tayo, we suddenly had a performance boost, then let's call the PO and then say, look PO, we actually finished, let's do the demo now. Diba? And then maybe we can add the next 8, 9, 10 user stories. It's supposed to be a no-no, right? The sprint should be intact, and once you start the sprint, you don't interrupt, you don't add. So this is a special case, and I will leave it up to you guys. The really strict Scrum practitioners would say, finish it, and then second sprint, learn from it. We'll say, maybe we can do more next time. The other way is be more flexible. Call the PO, meet, add user stories that you think can fit. So it's you're going to plan again, actually. And then do that, the remaining tasks of the sprint. Michael, do you have an answer to that? What would you prefer?
What I usually do, once, for example, we overestimated and we finished early, I stop the sprint, then do the demo, then start another sprint.
And then start a new sprint. Take into consideration that you had a performance boost, so you might be better now.
Actually, it looks good, no? Pag sinabi mo sa tiro, galing naman mga
finish
case
early.
na.
Okay? Any other questions? Any questions about Scrum in general? Kasi we're wrapping up now. Yeah, good question. Sorry, I forgot to give you the roles. Okay. Let me just jump, kasi I was jumping here and there. And we won't have time to discuss going down the charts. Okay, very, very quickly lang. So we've already talked about the roles. There's a PO, an SM, and the dev team or the team. The product owner makes all the decisions on the schedule and the features. So PM is no longer making those decisions. In fact, there is no longer any PM here. Okay? And many of the experts say the best transition is for the PM to become the PO, the product owner, not the Scrum Master. Because there are many things you need to unlearn. It's possible, pero the transition is easier from project manager to product owner. Because what does a project manager do? Make decisions about time and budget and also features, right? Which are what the product owner does. Right? The Scrum Master actually, Scrum Master is the facilitator of the whole process. The Scrum Master makes sure that the goal of a Scrum Master is to deliver a self-organizing or a high-performance team. And you know what I mean by a high-performance team. We did that during the ballpoint game. Right? It has to be self-organized. It has to make its own decisions. So here's a scenario. There's an issue that needs to be resolved. And the developers approach the Scrum Master. Yes, let's think of an issue. Okay, Scrum Master, we cannot connect to this government agency. If you're the Scrum Master, what are you supposed to do? Go to the PO, and then?
Request the guard access from their...
Okay, so that's one way. So first, you need to convene the PO and the development team together to meet. And this partially answers that question. The project manager should be shielding, or the dev team shouldn't approach the client. In Scrum, you actually encourage the development team to talk to the client, with the Scrum Master merely facilitating. Sa ano kasi, in traditional, the project manager is the go-between. You're not supposed to, the client is not supposed to give directions directly to the development team. So that's why I mentioned, you are shielding, as a project manager, you are shielding the development team. In Scrum, no. The development team should face the product owner. The Scrum Master will facilitate that process. And this is why the Scrum Master actually, as much as possible, should not come from a developer perspective. Okay, it will be good if the Scrum Master is a good programmer, but that will become a baggage. Why? Because when there's a technical issue involved, the Scrum Master immediately has a solution, and he tries to impose it on the team, but that won't work. Okay, why is it important for the Scrum Master not to impose instructions or decisions to the team? Why do you think that's important? It's not? Of course, it's not his role. Pero why? What's the principle behind it? Clear? Not just about reconditioning. Clear?
It should be self-organizing.
So what about self-organizing? Why does self-organization work?
They should be the ones providing the solutions to their problems.
Correct. They should be providing the solutions to the problem. If the solution is coming from the development team, they're actually owning up to it more than if you impose it on them. That way, when the hits the fan, they don't point at you. Right? Because you instructed me to do this. Diba? Was that the answer? Okay, sige. Diba? You actually have more ownership of the solution if you are the one who proposed it. Diba? As versus if I am telling you, no, I'm telling you do this. But sir, again, an argument which wastes time, and they're not happy with the decision, they won't implement. They might probably also sabotage your instructions, right? Just to prove that your solution didn't work. So it's about improving the buy-in on the decisions. Oh, this is another sige.
I think the assumption there is that you're looking at really a high caliber one. If you start with new grads at hand, they don't possess any communication skills that enables them to communicate with the client.
Good. In fact, you are now citing the competencies, the additional competencies that the dev team must have. First, they have to be able to communicate well. Maybe they should have negotiation skills. But the Scrum Master is there to help facilitate. So it's really there's a learning curve here. The Scrum Master must coach the team. Come on, speak up. You have to talk. So this actually entails the development team to step up and expand their level of competency to other skills. Being able to do. Of course, we know engineers are often shy. That's why we decided to work with computers instead, rather than talk people in the first place. But here, the principle is actually step out and discuss with the client. The initial fear kasi comes from the fact that the stances, the positions are combative because now we are locked into the plan. But when you start the face-to-face interaction, that will wither away those walls and barriers. When you start discussing things and the ability to handle conflict, when you start handling conflict very well, you start becoming more customer focused as a developer. And the customers will appreciate it.
Are we assuming that the client has a real background on, software development? Because sometimes,
or a background in Scrum?
not really. Maybe more on software development or
Not really.
because sometimes if the client is more into business side and developers are talking more on the lingo of the technical side, so sometimes I would see a scenario that there will be chaos during the meeting.
That's why actually, when you look at it, Scrum is a more customer-focused approach as opposed to XP. Extreme Programming is a more developer-focused approach, developer-centric. We're saying it's a more customer approach because, for example, user stories, for one, are written from the perspective of the client. Diba? So, in fact, the Scrum methodology and the Agile methodology in general is designed such that the client doesn't have to know technical stuff. So, the user stories are written at the client perspective. They don't say, okay, use JavaScript, etc. They're saying, I need authentication or I want to be able to validate, etc. And then it's the developer's, it's the developer's role now to try and translate that into a technical level. And that is actually more internal. They don't have to explain that to the client unless it's needed. Unless it's an obstacle, but then they can tell the client. And I've experienced this. Dati, because now you we skip this during sprint planning, there's a portion where the PO will meet the developers. And the PO will say, for this sprint, my goals are 1, 2, and 3. And I want these to happen because they deliver the following values to my business. Okay? He tries to explain it from his perspective. And then the developers now try to ask him questions to clarify it from a technical perspective. And then, let's say, there's one example that happened to us. The client said, this form that you created, can we change it, or can we, he said, in addition to this form, can we create a new form that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it was about 50 fields, 50 data fields. And then the developer asked the question, why do you want these 50 fields? There's a lot of them, etc., etc., and they're being replicated in another page. And the client said, well, because we are launching this event, and we need to be able to view the registrants and their information, blah, 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 blah. And so the client was interpreting it that a new form will solve it. The developer said, look, these are already available in this page. I will just add a couple of new fields for you. Will this be enough? And the client said, yes, of course, that's okay. We don't need the 50 new fields in a new form. So it's a dialogue that's happening here. And by doing that, by doing the Q&A, the developers try to understand it, and then they actually give a better way to deliver that requirement to the customer. Okay? Oh, what else? One more siguro, Ansi na tayo. Okay. So there's a lot more, but I hope I delivered to you the most important ones. My suggestion is go to scrumalliance.org. One word, the scrumalliance.org. There's a lot of there. Download the Scrum Primer. The Scrum Primer, that's where the diagram came from, the diagram that I showed you. It has almost like a step-by-step manual that will help you run the Scrum. You're lucky, guys, because we went through this and I taught you the principles. Kasi nung kami, we just downloaded it and tried to perform it without knowing the principles behind. So sometimes we were just performing it for compliance, and it was failing because our point of view was the project management perspective. Any other questions? Yes? The slides, sige, Haifa has your email address, I'll put it on slide share. I'll ask Haifa to send the link. Michael, would you like to add something? See, Michael is a Scrum Master trainer, certified Scrum Master.
So anyways, so I think this is a great event kasi usually create yung mga Scrum things. Yeah, so I hope you learn a lot. Then, siguro, quick words, Scrum is never meant to be a silver bullet in your development process. Kung feel mo sa'yo yung level 5, sige lang. Marami kong pera eh. Pero kung sa tingin mo na you'll be doing better with Scrum, by all means you should try it. Obviously, a better implementation would be if you have management on board. So like, you have to convince your CFO or CEO or your COO that this will be a great transition or a potentially great transition. Then, and Scrum this is not set in stone, so you can adjust how you want it to be done. You don't, for example, ang experience meron sprint na 2 weeks, hindi pa 1 week. So, depende on how your team dynamics. So, this is not set in stone and this is not a silver bullet.
Any other questions? So, to answer yung kaninang scenario na I said. Okay.
Curious na po kung paano magkaroon ng Scrum Master certificate.
What's the question?
Scrum Master certification na po.
How do you get it? You take one of the courses that are delivered by Scrum Alliance. So here's recently nag-set up CodeLean at saka nag-set up yung OddE. OddE used to be based in Singapore by one of the pioneers of Scrum. He literally wrote the textbooks in Scrum. So he has books. He's based in Singapore. So he Bas Wada. He delivers the training through CodeLean. In ScrumAlliance.org, you will find that information dun sa training. When you click on it, may nakalagay na Philippine training, and you will get skills. That's actually what Michael and I took that course, and you will learn a lot from it also. It's a 2 days na ba yun?
Yes, 2 days.
2-day course, medyo mahal. So, and then after that, they will give you a link where you can take the test. It's pretty informal right now. When you finish the test, it will email you or display to you a downloadable certificate that you can print out. Ganun siya. To answer kaninang scenario, if the dev team or the PO approaches you with a problem as a Scrum Master, what do you do? What will the Scrum Master do? So gather the PO and the dev team and then facilitate the solution. It shouldn't come from the Scrum Master. That's why it's a different skill. Ang mas kailangan mo rito sa Scrum Master, a coach and a facilitator, rather than a project manager. But if you're a project manager wanting to transition, you can actually observe and be willing to unlearn the project management perspective. But it's going to be painful. Ako nga, I would catch myself suggesting to them, even suggestions to sila should be last resort sila dapat. Dapat the team should come to its own decisions. Yeah. Okay? Any more questions? One last? Ang Scrum? Okay. 3 plus or minus
7 minus 2.
7 plus or minus 2, which is 3 to 9. 5, 9. Okay, sorry. Iba kasi perspective. Yung 7 plus or minus 2 will give you 5 to 9. Pero I've worked with Scrum teams na 3. And some experts say it's a 3 to 9 thing. Up to 15 daw. You can push it up to 15. But beyond that, you are no longer maximizing the synergy. That's why actually you could accomplish more with less. Yeah. I'm sure there are more complex questions later. Wala na tayong time. Are you raising your hand? No? Okay. That's
Kasi sa ibang certification, may years na kailangan ng
okay. Parang wala pa wala pa yata. But kasi nag-evolve pa yung alliance eh. I think they are evolving into that, pero parang wala pa. Once you take it, kasi ang important sa kanila, the practice itself. You should be practicing. So, hindi din masyado kasi important yung papel, yung certification. It's really more of, they'll ask you, how long have you been practicing? PMI has its own certification. It's called PMI-APM. Agile Project Manager. Okay, so thank you everyone. And medyo nakakapagod, pero it's worth it, ano? Kasi I hope we will win more converts here and you start practicing it. Ano? It's going to be difficult, pero one of the competencies and characteristics of strong practitioners is actually courage. Kailangan natin, we need to have courage to push this forward. So let's give ourselves a round of applause. Okay, so manood na tayo ng